Hi, welcome to the Bitcoin Brew, where we talk about what's going on in the Bitcoin space. Today, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin mining, a new space that just opened up out in Dickens County. We're going to be talking about Governor Newsom's executive order that he just put out on Wednesday. Lots to talk about there. Luxury brand Gucci just announced that they're going to be accepting Bitcoin. And then last but not least, we're going to be talking about how the US dollar is holding up with, how Bitcoin is holding up with the US dollar inflation rates and interest rates rising. My name is Becca, and here with me is my co-host Amy. Amy?
Hey everybody. I wanted to start with an exodus of sorts, an exodus of manpower, machines, all moving out of different countries, Kazakhstan, Iran, China, and there's one similarity that we're seeing is that these people, their manpower, their machines, they're coming here to the great state of Texas. And what's appealing to Texas is, first of all, our wide open spaces, our energy, ERCOT being a deregulated industry, and then also just sort of the gritty, open range sort of cowboy-esque attitude. But there's a bit of a downside. And as these mining groups are coming out, especially in places that are not highly populated, like Lubbock, Pyote, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but they're inundating the economy and there are no homes to be had for these individuals that are coming out to work. So one thing that Lubbock has been doing out in West Texas is they've been bringing in those, have you seen those storage cubes?
Yes.
That you can move equipment in on trains and semis. They're bringing those in to be almost like a temporary housing. I kind of thought that was a neat idea, and if you ever go to Austin, they actually make really cool homes out of those. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to kind of start with that little bit of intrigue, and this is all coinciding with a big grand opening in Argo of their large mining facility that occurred this week. So I wanted to get your insight on that. What do you think?
I think it's such a fascinating thing to just watch it all unfold. I was talking to a friend the other day who was at that opening, and they were just talking about how the town itself is so excited, and how it, the housing problem, it's going to bring in new builders, which is going to bring in new businesses, and just like breathing new life into that town. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of tiny houses, which
right.
Sounds like it's kind of like the ideal market for that right now. Anyway, but yeah.
Going minimal, living small,
Yeah.
and one thing I saw Argo did was they totally revamped the community swimming pool, which
That's
made
amazing.
all of the community members so excited. And then we think about the tax money that's going to go into the schools, which is going to have a huge benefit.
Yeah.
So working out this little hurdle, hopefully they'll get through it. And the housing market's tough right now everywhere, especially with that recent increase
Sure.
in the interest rates.
Yes, which we'll get to that later. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
I don't think so. I'm going to pitch it to you. What did you bring today?
So next up, I was thinking we could talk about Governor Newsom, California. On Wednesday, he put out an executive order, and I think there's a lot of hype around it, but it's a 7-point document, and I read it, and I was actually very underimpressed. I think there's a lot of political flexing going on right now. He's up for re-election November, midterms obviously, and I think he was probably trying to get to a voter base that maybe he's not super connected with. I think we saw this happen in New York recently with the mayor there, Eric Adams. When he was a candidate, he was running and saying, I'm pro-Bitcoin, I'm going to take my first paychecks in Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. And literally the minute he was elected, he was like, actually, I don't think that. And they almost banned it. So I think we need to really not be, quiz these candidates, but we want to know where they're coming from and what their motivations are. In the executive order, he lists out several times California, they're saying we want to curate California values, we're going to work closely with the federal government, and all these things that are good things, but it doesn't really mesh with Bitcoin, and specifically Bitcoin, but really crypto either. And it's hard to compare it to a state like Texas that is so welcoming to Bitcoin mining, businesses to start, in Texas, and Governor Abbott, obviously Cruz and Cornyn are on board. Up and coming representatives are also on board. TBC is doing so many good things, getting out there and educating people, that it's just almost impossible to like compare Texas with any other state right now. So I think the midterms are going to be super messy because they usually are, and it just is vamping up even more and more. But I mean, really, at the end of the day, Texas is Bitcoin country, so what are you going to do about it? But what are your thoughts on all of that?
I totally agree with things getting messy, and I also wonder, is Bitcoin crypto and their stances, politicians, is it for PR? Is it for getting the notoriety and the camera time that they want? And how do we really tell what their stance is? It's kind of hard to know that. You got to look at their careers, look at what they speak it to, and I don't know, how do you kind of cut the beef from the fat from the beef?
I mean, it's almost like we need to interview candidates that come out loudly about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, because it really does matter. I think so many people are becoming single issue voters on this issue, so I think we're going to see it more and more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, throwing it to you.
Okay, so I've got some interesting news hot off the press. You already know Starbucks, Whole Foods, Microsoft, Home Depot. These are all corporations that currently accept Bitcoin, but a new company has thrown in their logoed hat, Gucci.
All right.
They're going to accept Bitcoin, Ethereum. I think I even saw Dogecoin. So they're not particular about which cryptocurrency, but I'm curious about this because I know as the metaverse unfolds, are we going to start seeing fashion shows where we can sit in and be immersed in a show and then get to purchase our goods with our cryptocurrency using our wallets? I'm really intrigued as to where this is going and what this means for the future of retail.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I wonder what motivated them to get out there and start accepting cryptocurrency.
Where do you go? Yeah. Where do you shop? Do you use Bitcoin when you go out and shop?
I no, do not. But I also don't shop at Gucci either. But I guess there's lots of different places that I can shop and use my Bitcoin. But I'm more of a hodler, as they say. So
you prefer to use your fiat instead,
especially right now. Yeah,
I think that's probably very wise. Yeah, very wise. I'll keep you updated when I buy my first purse and how that goes using my
Can't wait to hear more about
Bitcoin.
Okay, so last but not least, we're just going to talk about interest rates going up 0.5 point. I mean, that's massive. And inflation. So pretty recently, there was an official report that said inflation was at 8%. But I think a lot of experts would say it's more like 20% within the next year. So somewhere between 8 and 20%. I mean, that is just almost unbelievable. Bitcoin, though, historically isn't correlated to the stock market. But obviously the Fed's trying to slow down inflation, kind of cool the market off. And we did see a drop in Bitcoin the other day. But I think we just got to remember, like, long-term focus. The world reserve currency will be Bitcoin. So the current price is not so much an issue or something we need to be concerned about. It's going to get where it needs to go eventually. So I think the important thing to remember is that the U.S. really needs to start building their own Bitcoin base so that it can be a supplement to the U.S. dollar, especially in times like right now when the economy is super unstable. That's a varying term, but I think it's an important thing to remember.
Wow, that's insightful. And do you think it would start at the state level and go up, or do you think this would have to be something that would start in DC and trickle down?
Gary Gensler, the SEC chair, has just been such a stickler on this. I think it's going to have to start at the state level, and with education, trial runs, different things like that. And I think it will be helpful the more states that adopt it. So all the more important for TBC to keep doing what they're doing.
Absolutely. I'm here for the ride.
Yeah. I'm glad.
Wow. Well,
all right.
Cheers to a weekly recap. Everybody, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.